We were looking at the difference between demand for domestic goods and domestic demand for goods. Then we looked at how we can plot them against output. Now we want to look at how do we draw a a graph directly below the first graph where we plotted DD and ZZ against output. But now in the second graph, we want to show net exports on the y-axis as a function of output on the x-axis. And we will align our graphs so that the x-axis on each graph measures the same amount of output. The y-axis on the second graph should be directly below the y-axis on the first. We want to align these graphs. Now, the relation between output and net exports in the second graph will be represented as this line NX, where N stands for net, and then here X is for this exports. Now, let's look at three properties of this net export schedule that we plotted. Number one, the net export schedule is going to be downward sloping in the NXY plane. Now, why is that? Because when we increase Y, what happens is when we increase Y, imports increase, and that causes net exports to go down, so it's downward sloping. The second thing is that we're going to call the level of output for which net exports are equal to 0. So we have balanced rate YT, right? So this is YTB when net exports are 0, right? So this is the horizontal intercept of this net export schedule, right? So call the level of output for which net exports are equal to 0, YTB, right? It's the horizontal intercept of our net export schedule. Now, levels of output above YTB lead to higher import because when output increases, imports increases, and that will lead to trade deficit. So for any level of output above YTB, we'll have a trade deficit. And for any level of output below YTB, because we have lower output, that means lower imports and hence a trade surplus. Right, so at YTB, net exports are 0. For levels of output above YTB, as imports increase, we'll have a trade deficit. For levels of output below YTB, as imports go down, we'll have a trade surplus. And when you're plotting this in a two-panel diagram, make sure the YTB in the upper panel and the lower panel coincide. In the upper panel, it's at the intersection of DT and ZZ, and in the lower panel, it's the horizontal intercept of the net export schedule. Now, let's remember that when we talked about net exports, we said they depend upon domestic output, foreign output, and the rate exchange rate. Now, any changes in output will only cause movements along the net export schedule because it's a variable on the axis, and variables on the axis only cause movements. But changes in foreign output and rate exchange rate will cause shifts in our net export schedule, right? So when Y star changes, so when Y star increases, we know that increases exports, which increases net exports. But now net exports increase for any given level of Y, so the entire schedule will shift upwards in the NXY plane. Similarly, if rate exchange rate goes down, assuming the Marshall-Lerner condition holds, net exports will increase. And since they're increasing for any given level of Y, the entire net export schedule is going to shift upwards. So net exports depend upon Y, which causes movements along the net export schedule in the NXY plane. Net exports depend upon Y star and rate exchange rate, which cause shifts in our net export schedule in the NXY plane.